arms towards the sun. You feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive and you don't have to be afraid.
Welcome to the Bassline. Laura Taylor is a licensed family therapist who is going to provide us with unique insight into the psychology and the psychological impact of the COVID event. Experienced, dedicated, and wise, we are very fortunate to be joined today by Laura Taylor. Hello, Laura. Welcome to the Bassline. How are you today?
Hi, Jeremiah. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Now, first of all, folks, this is a pre-recorded episode, which has its strengths and its weaknesses. We have a little bit more time to talk directly with our guest without interruption, but of course, we won't be taking calls today, unfortunately. But hopefully, we'll have Laura back on another occasion where she can take some phone calls from our astute audience. Please support my Substack. Check out my latest article. Please become a free, or if you can, paid subscriber. Please go to jeremiahhosea.com. Check out my music and consider buying the theme song of this show for one thing, for just $1. Be a nice little showing of confidence, basically, that you appreciate what we're doing here every week, bringing tremendous guests. And of course, I'm a chess teacher, so sign up for a chess lesson at remotelearningchess.com, hashtag the baseline for a discount. And yeah, I'm very excited about today's episode. Now, I'm not sure if I've mentioned to our audience previously, but my father, my late father, was a psychoanalyst. And it's a big part of my upbringing. I always had a sort of psychologically themed um, ongoing conversation with my father from the time that I was very young. And as I was explaining to Laura before we started the interview, it was something that I always gravitated towards. It was this sort of psychoanalytic view of the world and always trying to figure out what was going on with myself, with the world around me. And for that reason, I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. And there's so many questions that I have pertaining to what we've experienced that I'd really love to hear Laura's insight into some of these matters. Um, Pardon me, just taking a sip of water there. But first of all, Laura, just please, if you could, give us an overview of your approach to therapy and the type of work that you do.
Mm. I'll try to keep that as simple as possible because in truth, I believe that truth is simple, and yet sometimes getting to truth can feel complicated. But I look at people not as individuals, but as deeply connected to their ancestors, to their relatives, to their culture. And I try to take all of that into account. I had extensive training in something called family constellation with a beautiful man named Mark Wolin, who wrote a book, by the way, if you're interested in learning more about family constellation, it's a book called It Didn't Start With You. You can easily find it on Amazon. That'd be something I'd love to come back and talk about as well, because there's a lot to that beautiful work. But I'm very aware, I became very aware early on in my training that when people came to visit me for sessions, came to sit with me, there were times I could feel a lot behind them, and I didn't know how to explain it, and no one had taught me about that. And I'll just tell a quick story that I think illustrates this. I had a young woman who came to see me who was in her middle 20s, and she'd lost her father, who she was very close to. He died from a prolonged illness. And I always felt like somebody was there with her. And I had this visual of this male face, and I didn't say anything to her. And one point, she shared a story with me that gave me permission to share something that I said, I just feel like there's something around you. The anniversary of her father's death came, and I said, let's do a little ritual. I'll bring some candles, you bring some pictures. And she brought the pictures of her father and laid them out on the table. And I turned white and my eyes opened. And she said, what was that? And I said, well, this is the image I've been seeing behind you for these years. And I said, but it's been fading. Anyway, so suffice to say, I went on a journey kind of trying to figure out what are these things that I feel around people. And I started to understand that our families, in the culture within which we live, many of us, our families and the history of our families and all that they've been through often isn't represented in our sessions. And the strengths of our families, the challenges of our families, and our culture affect us much more than we like to take into account, I think. And as I started to learn about that, I did trainings in family constellation and learned that there was something I had been feeling for a long time that was true. So this is just the beginning of this discussion, which we don't have to take any further than this, but suffice to say that when I work with an individual, I'm not only looking at the internalized family patterns and their experiences, but I try to know that there are influences a lot more than what the person is just talking about. My work is called Vulnerable Living. What I look at is how a person, the meaning that they give to things that have happened to them in their lives. We explore the impact of that on their current milieu, how they're looking at life, what's tripping them up, where they get stuck. And one of the things that I've come to see in general with human beings is that often inside there's a missing, loving, present parent aspect.
Yeah.
I could say a lot more.
Yeah.
What I
Well,
saw happen with COVID was that people's vulnerable self, which is the child, for a lot of people, they gave that self over to media other than themselves and made a lot of
wait, hold on. I'm
decisions
sorry.
based on
Laura, could you repeat that last part? There was a little glitch up, it seemed, in the Zoom. I don't want people to miss that point you just made.
okay. So that what I saw with a lot of people was that they took that vulnerable self gave its power over to doctors, media, all the people that were talking to them through fear, because fear
Yeah.
is a powerful, powerful tool that when you know how to use it, can be used to have people feel vulnerable and not trust themselves and give their power over to others. And I witnessed that. And I was so grateful that I'd been studying this and developing this way of looking at people, because it became so apparent to me what was happening immediately.
Mm.
Immediately, I saw what looked like to me gaslighting, manipulation, and propaganda. I saw it from the beginning, and I started to look for fellow-minded, fellow-thinking people, because being in California, I was surrounded by a lot of people that were falling for the fear.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get back to some of that stuff in more detail. But I would love to ask you because, as I mentioned, my father was a psychoanalyst, and he was very um, specific to always point out when people said subconscious, he would say, no, not subconscious, unconscious. And he would say that sometimes that when people use the term subconscious, they're referring to something that he would more call the preconscious. But they have to understand that it's not subconscious per se, it's truly unconscious forces that are driving people. So I heard you in
Yes.
previous interviews refer to the unconscious, and I would just love, since we have you here, if you could share with the audience just a little bit about just the concept of the unconscious and how important it is that we understand that that's a driving force.
Oh yeah, it's often the driver of our vehicle, and we don't even realize it. We think that we're having free will. I do believe in free will, by the way. I do believe it's influenced by things, but so often people are driving their car with their old experiences, with imprinting that happened to them before they even had a choice to say, yes, I want that information to go in, and that thing feels true to me, and that thing, we were imprinted and programmed by our parents and our culture, unbeknownst to them. I think oftentimes people don't realize how much they're affecting their children, by schools, by media, by TV shows, by books that we read, by Disney. I call it the Disney delusion. Our children, the child vulnerable self in us, is often looking for this fantasy life that gets us into trouble. The way that I look at the unconscious in my model is I say that that's the vulnerable child. That's that base part of us. Imagine 3 equal-sized circles inside of a being. The base circle is the vulnerable child. The next circle is the internal, present, loving parent. And the top circle is the adult that is ideally running our life. But when people come to me, and in particular with COVID, I saw all these children driving their lives. Fear, trying to drive away from death and toward wellness. And as we've learned, many of us later than that point, that was exactly what they were trying to do. It worked, it was effective. And unfortunately, what happened is people's trauma was stirred up by this encounter. So not only were they afraid of dying of COVID or not being vaccinated or being around unvaccinated people, these greater fears that had never been resolved inside of them were also activated. So we had a lot of people feeling a lot of intense emotions. And I'm really angry about what was purposefully, in my opinion, done.
Yeah. Well, actually, you're sort of leading me naturally into what is the next question, and it's something that truly fascinates me. I mean, I'm fascinated by this to this day, which is many of the behaviors that I observed, changes in personality I would find in certain people that um, there's a whole community of activists that I was a part of who were radical, I thought, who, would protest any form of injustice and were so concerned about the abuses of the state and all this kind of thing, who became so uniform all of a sudden in response to this, that there was just this list of things that they had to abide by, and they were very resentful to people who weren't compliant the way they were. And just it was such a strange thing to experience, and something I still can't make sense of. I guess could you go into some more detail in terms of what you think was going on in terms of people taking on this new persona, this hypervigilance about they were now these self-recruited foot soldiers of the biosecurity state is what I call them. What was going on there? I mean, we have fear. One thing I observed is there's also a personality type that just enjoys every opportunity to be hypervigilant.
Yes.
You there's the power dynamic. There's the dynamic of wearing a mask as a way of hiding. There was a lot of people who love to any opportunity to hide. And
Or
now, oh,
to
we can
virtue
hide
signal.
every day.
And
Or the
virtue
virtue
signal.
signal, right? All these, it's every person is different, and it's this big mixed bag of emotions and influences. So, give us a little bit more detail in terms of what you see to be the psychodynamic there, in terms of people suddenly becoming so obedient and uniform to this new mission.
Yeah, it's still kind of my my area of curiosity, because I don't think I have a simple answer. I wish that I did, but I saw the same thing. I saw people who had worked on themselves, who I considered to be, even in my profession, forward thinking, open-minded, open-hearted, who locked down into fear and compliance. And some of them are still there. Some of them still don't see the current information that's being shared. They still are getting their boosters. I blows my mind. They're still getting ready to put their masks on for this next pandemic. And
Hmm.
all I can say is that I'm not certain why it is that some of us who maybe could relate to being that way were able to stay self-connected and check in and see if this thing that wasn't making sense. I mean, if you looked at even the rate of death, it didn't make sense for people to be afraid. They were giving
Yeah.
us the information, but there were people that I think fell more for the charts on the TV and the fear porn, that somehow they lost hold of holding on to that vulnerable child as the parent and saying, we've got this. I don't have enough information yet. I will take care of you, the loving, present parent inside. Instead, what they did was as I said earlier, they gave that child, that traumatized child, which we all have, big T trauma and little T trauma. We all have moments that things were missed, where we needed presence and love from another being who was more competent than us and had an amygdala and a hippocampus that could figure things out, and a nervous system that could access the vagal nerve and calm itself down. Instead, we gave this fearful child over to all these other people that we didn't even know. But I think that that vulnerable child didn't have, this is how I look at it, didn't have a present enough parent inside, just like they didn't when other traumas happened. And so we handed that child over and became childlike in spite of the
Mm,
facts. And here's what I've learned in my work. There's so much that I've learned, but a really important piece is the adult in us does not
mhm,
know how to deal with the inner child. The
mm,
linchpin is the inner parent. And so these brilliant, bright people who might be activists and might know to do things, when the child was overwhelming and the parent gave it away, the adult's like, I don't know what to do with this. And so it's the adult shrinks. The adult shrinks and the parent shrunk. And then the child was in its trauma again. No present parent, no present adult. So it looked for other resources to believe and to hope that they would be the ones that would care for them. And that's how they became compliant. This is in my humble opinion, this is how it happened. And I'm not
wow.
sure why some people were able to access that parent inside, even without doing my work. Some people did. And
Mhm,
perhaps they had parents that mirrored that for them, that stood up for them when other
mm,
people wouldn't. Perhaps they had a
mm,
present enough parent that believed in them and that would say it'll be okay and we'll figure this out. I'm not certain,
mm.
but I would love to do research around this because I
Yeah,
know people that I would have thought would have and didn't. That didn't. They lost it. They were compliant children.
yeah. This is so profound. I'm so glad to hear what you're saying. It's just it really is quite a bit to think about. It makes so much sense what you're saying. It provides a really um, powerful framework. So a question that I have not heard asked, and where I try to, I don't know, where I try to do my thing as an independent journalist is I try to ask questions that I frankly haven't heard asked in other places, and I try to also. I guess the basic goals of this program, there are several, but one goal that comes to mind is I like to gather technical information as well as I can as a layperson and make it available to other lay people without exceeding my own boundaries in that respect, because I'll tap out as soon as I don't know about genetics, I don't know about all these little codes and stuff that you have here. I won't try to get too deep in the weeds, but as far as the things that we as lay people can understand when explained to us, I say let's exchange this information, right? I think there's like a big problem, in fact, which I'm not going to go off on a tangent here, but there's this real problem in understanding that there degrees of knowledge, and that's reasonable, right? Like, for example, if a doctor explains something to me, I can understand what the doctor is saying if it's explained within reason. It doesn't make me a surgeon, and I'm not
No.
attempting to be a surgeon, but I've gained knowledge where I didn't have
Yes.
knowledge before. And there's this terrible effect that's happened of, if you're not an expert, don't even think about it. Just leave it to the experts, which is a technocracy. And I didn't agree to sign up, to live in a technocracy, and I don't want to. But all that being said, a question that I have, or the other goal I was going to say, which is what this question is based in, is I like to, as I was saying, just ask questions that I don't hear being asked. And I think, well, why aren't we discussing that? And one of these questions is for the people who were coerced into taking these injections, and I've spoken to many people. I'm not going to start sharing a number of stories that I could share right now to perfectly explain the type of person I'm referring to, but people who just said basically, I don't want to take these shots. I'm scared to take this shot, but I'm more scared of becoming homeless. I have 3 kids that I need to feed. They say I can't return to my job if I don't take this. I'm not prepared to take on the state. I'm not prepared to wage that battle. I have to roll up my sleeve, and you're being coerced into something that you don't appreciate, and you even have medical concerns about this. You have no fear of catching COVID per se. You have fear of losing your job and being homeless. So for the people who didn't want to take the shots in the first place, now they've heard about the excess deaths. They've seen some died suddenly. They've seen the hashtag died suddenly on their social media. They have additional reason for anxiety. I haven't heard anybody discuss this feature, which is what is the effect on all of those people who were coerced into doing something that they did not want to do? And now they have to live with the anxiety. So my question to you is, what do you perceive as the outcome of having to live with this type of anxiety, of having to have been, coerced into something, to have the fear of death or any number of things associated with this whole experience? What do you think could be the psychological and physical effects of this kind of ongoing anxiety?
Oh, it makes me I want to sob when you just asked me that question, because these people were traumatized. They were told to go against their own body sovereignty. They didn't get a choice. I think a lot of people, if they had had the chance to not be so fear driven, if they hadn't been so manipulated by fear, I think a lot of people wouldn't have taken it if they weren't afraid of losing their homes, their livelihood, their ability to interact with other people socially. There were so many reasons that people took something that they didn't believe was really something that they should take. So now they have trauma. They live in fear. And on top of the trauma that they have now with this, they have that in addition to whatever other events haven't been resolved. So it's cumulative, added on top,
Mm,
which is why I have
mm,
so many clients that are now talking about things that happened decades ago, perhaps, or they're finally
mm,
trying to get resolution to their depression that they've had forever, that they don't know is from their traumas that are unresolved, but they find me, fortunately, and we work on that. I'm so angry at what happened to billions of people, billions.
mm. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yes, they've been harmed, and they are psychologically dealing with now this trauma on top of whatever. And I will make this a big T trauma. This isn't a small T trauma. This is
I
a
agree.
common experience that many people are having. And then you add in all I'm going to call it, it's not very professional, but I'm going to call it fuckery. All the other fuckery that's been added in, the trans stuff. I mean, there's so many things we could have conversations about, that there's been an opening for more people to be manipulated and to not stay home with themselves. To me, that was the problem, is that they were invited to be afraid of things outside of themselves and taught to not trust themselves.
Mm.
And
Right.
that, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, you're sort of beginning to answer what is my next question, which is, uh, I mean, I don't want to say that it's self-explanatory, because it's not. These are just very complicated sort of dynamics within people that we're talking about. But my question is, um, how would you describe this effect, and maybe go into some of the details in terms of this this desire to not talk about what happened, to sweep it under the rug, stuff it into the closet. And one thing that I found really fascinating about people's behavior is it was this paradoxical thing of, I noticed people would even say it's not important where COVID came from in regard to the lab leak hypothesis. There's, oh, it's not important. Well, it's very important, both legally, medically, scientifically, et cetera. And then on the back end, they're not concerned about the excess deaths and the vast vaccine injuries and so on, but they were such soldiers about the shots, the action. So they were so committed to a radical action, but they don't care about the front end, and they don't care about the back end. They don't care about how we got into this, and they don't care about what their actions have done and the repercussions of these actions that they were so committed to, but they were so committed to this militant project, basically. Could you explain some of that stuff?
Well, this is how brilliant the propaganda is and was. The first message to get in mixed with the fear. So you create the fear and you plant a message that becomes the strongest message for those who didn't defend against it, who didn't know to question it and to put a pause and to take a breath and meditate, or you know, look at the statistics, not respond to the fear. Those messages got in so deeply that many people are unable to critically assess this entire situation. It's brilliant. They knew what they were doing. And when I say they,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure exactly who they is, but I can tell you it's more than our government. It's more than big
Mhm.
pharma. There's a big
Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
and they know what they're doing.
Yeah, you make a great point. Yeah, you make a great point. Yeah, you remind me of one of my best friends who's actually been a co-host on this program as well as a guest who, he says,
Yes.
evil genius. Everything that they did worked like a charm.
Well,
It
and
worked
and
like a charm.
and I know how it works because this is what I help people untangle from their family systems, from ritualized abuse. It's the same thing, but it was used against the entire world.
Wow. Wow. And actually I want to chime in on a point that you sort of alluded to right there while we have the opportunity. It's something that I do consider on an ongoing basis as I consider consider all these various aspects. One thing that I think it also is not acknowledged enough, and I've written about it a little bit, but it's very important, which is the fact of what you just alluded to in terms of we just experienced an event where all of the world leaders were being puppeteered by the same puppet master, which has to raise the question, who has that kind of power? Who wrote this script? Who's controlling that? I mean, I'm not, although some people might consider me to be a conspiracy theorist or whatever, they actually don't know my politics very well. I'm a pragmatic political thinker, actually. And I viewed things from a more conventional point of view, honestly, of, well, there's the US, it's an empire, it's rivaling with other empires and so on. And then you see collusion with the United States and China and Russia, all of our
Oh, yes.
enemies, and they're all on board for the COVID agenda and everything. And I would like to investigate that further. I can't make grand comments about who's orchestrating that, but my point here right now is the fact that we have really just sort of glossed over that. We
Yes.
went back to our old understanding when it was just proven to us that the old framework is not the case in terms
No.
of the true hierarchy of power in the world.
Well, and
And
you
we
look
still,
at,
I was just going to
sorry.
say, we proceed, I was going to say quickly, we proceed based on a paradigm that we know is outdated.
Yes. And look at where the currently where the bird flu's coming out of. Look at where it appears that COVID came from. Our talking points are bullshit. We're hearing bullshit. China's the enemy. Russia's the enemy. Look at what happened. They overplayed their hand for some of us who are paying attention, is basically what I say. And I, like you, thought of myself in a what do I want to call a neutral political position, and just, but I can tell you, they played their hand. They overplayed their hand because now I feel like I looked behind the curtain. I don't like what I see. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I think I'm a reality theorist. And all the conversations I was having in Clubhouse, and I was trying to tell people, but there's research in Italy that's showing this, there's that. Oh, Laura, you should go get your COVID shot. Just go get your COVID shot. We're worried
Mhm.
about you. Well, and I wouldn't say to them, I'm really worried about you because I am reading things about what's in it. I didn't say that. I just said, please trust me that this is the choice I'm going to make for myself. I got uninvited from parties. I have friendships that have basically ended because of the way that I was treated as a leper. People that would turn me in if I was a Jew, I'd be hiding
Yeah.
people. I saw,
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw my people. There were people ready to turn me in, and they were turning me in their own way. I'm the one who'd be hiding you under the railway,
Yeah.
anyway. I
You
think that,
remind me of specific people that I know for sure.
and it's and when I come back to the soft place in my heart where I like to land, I know that they're afraid, and that they ate the scary cookie, and that it's in their body
Yeah.
and they're digesting it. And
Yeah.
I have other friends who
Yeah.
remained more neutral, who we have a mutual respect. And
Right. Same here. Yeah.
and they've
Same
come
time.
around, and some
Yeah.
but it had, the love had to be bigger. I mean, that's my message. Love has to be bigger than the fear, and I will risk for love. I will not risk for
Right.
fear.
Right. This is so powerful. Yeah. I love what you're saying. Yeah, and there's so many little things that you said there that remind me of my own life experience as it relates to this. And yeah, I just really can't believe it. I mean, one of the things I've been thinking about a lot, actually, because it was just my birthday. I'm a New Year's baby, so it was New Year's Day and it was my birthday, and there was a few people who I wished Happy New Year's to who didn't even respond to me. And these are old friends who I used to be close with, and maybe we haven't spoken in a while, but I said Happy New Year's, and they didn't even say that back. They didn't even have the courtesy of saying same to you or just the generic Happy New Year's, copy and paste or whatever. And it really fascinates me because there's a number of people that I've known for years, that I've performed with in different countries, who have completely treated me at this point like a persona non grata. And I'm like, wow, who you would think I was a mass murderer, you know? You would
Yes.
think that everyone had read about me in the newspaper and I went and just opened fire on people at Bryant Park or something. I'm like, hey, I'm raising two beautiful children. I'm a married man. I teach chess every day. I'm a musician. I practice my instrument every day. I do productive things and nice things. I try to be nice to people. Like I can't, I would love to hear, and that's the thing for me is here, it's a 1, 2, 3 that I kind of visualize it in terms of part one is the sorrow I feel that I've lost friends and that people have rejected me and don't respect my choices and don't respect me enough to have a conversation even about these things. If they would cut me off, again, like someone they had read about in the newspaper who committed some heinous act. Part two is then I say, you know what? If you need me to take dangerous experimental drugs to be your friend, I don't want to be your friend. I literally don't. So you made it a little bit easier for me to let go because like it's sad that this has happened, but I just don't want friends like that. I actually don't. But then part three, which is the biggest piece of the pie for me psychologically, is I'm utterly fascinated as to what they would say for themselves. I would love to be a fly on the wall to hear what they say about me behind my back,
Yes.
to know like what how do you view this? How did it get to a point that you wouldn't even talk to me? Because that's another thing I would love to hear if they were concerned about me. No one called me to say, hey man, I think you're going down the wrong path. Can we talk about what you're doing, getting all committed to this anti-vax stuff or whatever, and then we could talk about it. But the MO is generally to cut me off, to, as I put it, to leave me for dead, you know?
Yep. Yep.
Um, so that I find the whole thing so
It,
fascinating. And then on top of that, I really, really doubt, and I don't know, maybe there's an exception, but there aren't many exceptions, I'm sure, in terms of people who have continued to follow the science, who have stayed up to date on their boosters. So you
Mhm.
didn't take booster number 10, but you're not calling me back.
Right.
You're angry at me for saying I opted out from the beginning of something. You chose to opt out soon too, but you fell into this initially and you were like, oh wait, maybe I don't want to take boosters every 3 months for the rest of my life. Or maybe I had a bad effect and I don't want to feel that again. I don't want to keep getting sick, taking COVID shots, supposedly preparing my body for COVID. That's one of the main reasons why people stop taking the shots. Negative reaction, not just
Yes.
ideological things.
Yep.
And it's something I wrote about in an article recently where it's a downward slope in terms of the booster boondoggle, that it
Yep.
started out as 8 billion, 80%, I mean to say, of 80% of intake down to 70% intake by shot number two.
Yep.
And then booster by booster by booster, steady downward slope until now less than 2% of the population is fully up to date as
Yes.
recommended by the CDC, the
And they're
poison
still
pusher.
recommending it. That is astonishing to me.
Yeah, yeah. It's something
For
has
children.
really broken down. Yeah, for
For
children. And
children.
one thing I point
Stop.
out in regard to that And I'm sorry to go on here because I want to hear what you have to say, but you're throwing me so many softballs in terms of points that I want to make that I think are just germane to the whole situation, which is I really like to point out to people that we need to understand that this whole event represented a breakdown of every mechanism in our society that was supposed to protect us. This isn't just like a
Yes.
big evil plot
Yes.
from pharma. The police didn't protect you.
That's
The
right.
legal system didn't protect you. The politicians you voted for, they did not protect you. Step by step by step. The educational institutions, they
They
didn't
didn't.
protect you. And then it creates a terrible contradiction because I don't want to be educated by people who would tell me to make such a terrible decision.
Right.
You could
That's right.
teach me all the knowledge in the world, and you clearly don't understand the value of human life.
Yes.
So it's such a terrible thing that that we have to come to a reckoning at some point with the fact that this really represented a total breakdown. And now we have a point that we've reached where we have almost 20,000 doctors who have signed a petition saying take these shots off of the market, and no regulatory agency will listen to 20,000
Not
doctors.
yet, but we got something knocking right on our door. Thank goodness. Because I think
Yeah.
I'm hopeful, crossing both fingers, all my toes. And I happen to know someone who's close friends with RFK Jr., and he's the real deal. He,
Yeah, yeah. He's saying things that have never been said publicly before. So, I try to. I'm very cynical when it comes to
me
electoral
too.
politics, but he has said things that have not been said publicly before. So I have great hopes for what may happen.
There's going to
And
be
also,
pushback. There's going to be
there is
pushback. And those of us that are in support I don't know what we're going to need to do, but we need to be ready to do whatever we can, whether it's writing letters, protesting, I don't know,
right.
um, but the right conversations are happening through him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I have to take the time, actually, I'm sorry to take more time to
Oh, good.
digress a little bit, but it's a really important thing for everyone here within earshot range of my voice. We have to rally around former guest of the Baseline, John Baudouin. He wrote
Oh,
the book, The Real CDC. Now, a lot of people who are friends with John, they've been in Twitter spaces with John, they know him, they've heard him, they don't understand the significance of that book. John Baudouin, we have several categories of evidence that must be viewed publicly, that must be acknowledged by the authorities, that must be acknowledged in general. And John Baudouin, his book, The Real CDC, and his other book, The CDC Memorandum, that is record level data that proves the massive harm that has been inflicted. He didn't just
well,
go to the CDC and say, oh, here's what they said. He has record level data, and it's a thing that it's up to us to make as many people understand what he has proved right now as possible, or because we don't want to wait 10 years or 20 years for people to acknowledge what has been already proved factually right now.
well, and the real Anthony Fauci also, that book, and which also is a film. I don't know if you can still get that film, if how to get access. I believe you can do that online. But the real Anthony Fauci also proves there is nothing in the book written by RFK Jr. that isn't documented with links and references. Otherwise he would have been sued by Anthony Fauci. He wasn't sued because there is lots of proof. And I appreciate you sharing that book because I'll have to make sure I get my hands on it. The information is there, the propaganda is strong.
Yeah, I mean, basically what you see here's some things to understand about what John Baudouin is doing is he shows that when the shots were rolled out, you see again, according to the record level data starting within homes, Massachusetts, we see a sudden and clear increase in a variety of health issues. First of all, pulmonary embolism and renal failure. So there's a lot of people who they've suffered these things. They don't realize it's related to their shots. And he makes a valid point, which is that we're overemphasizing the myocarditis factor. As serious as that is, that's not to dismiss that. but it's being presented disproportionately relative to other forms of injury that people are not even considering and haven't even associated with the shots. When people need to know, no, first of all, as much as this is damaging people's hearts, it's damaging people's kidneys even
Their
more.
eyes, retinal
The eyes,
detachment. I know numbers of
detached retina. Same thing here. I've never heard of that. I was going to say glad, which is the wrong word. I'm sad about all of this, but you confirm something that has been stated on this program as well, which is I have a good friend who's uh, his brother's girlfriend was sitting there on the couch watching a movie, and something funny was going on in her eye. Something's wrong with my eye. Went to the hospital. Detached retina. I had never in my life heard of someone sitting there and getting a detached retina without any serious contact. You have
yeah,
people
spike
who have
protein.
completed entire boxing careers and
Yep.
never had a detached retina. People who have destroyed themselves in the NFL
Yep.
and will have a shortened life expectancy because of it, didn't have a detached retina. And now you can get a detached retina sitting there watching TV with no
After a
impact
COVID
whatsoever.
vaccine. And some
Yeah.
people even this is the part that the jury's still out for me anyway. I think that because it's a bioweapon, the COVID spike protein itself, even without the weaponization of it in the vaccine, that there are also some people that have had those injuries from COVID itself. It's just concentrated with the
Yeah,
vaccine.
yeah, yeah. It's sort of like a 1-2 punch sort of thing, or like a lock and key sort of situation. They go
Yes.
together, sort of compatible.
Yep.
So now let's get into sort of the solution minded portion of our discussion here, considering we discuss a wide range of things here, thankfully. But one thing that I'm really focused on in this new year is I'm trying to bring people together. I'm trying to do my best to make my contribution to what we could call the medical freedom movement, but I just call it the human dignity movement or the right to say no movement. But um, I'm trying to encourage people to basically brainstorm and put a list together. What can you practically do? Can you write an article? Can you write a song? One thing you can
Mhm.
always do is help amplify the voices of other people, such as yourself, such as this program. Um, by the way, everyone out there, speaking of what I'm speaking of right now, please join our group on X, the Stop the Shots community. Search us out on X, Stop the Shots. We currently have over 2,000 members, and we want that to be over 2 million soon. It's a living petition. It's a repository and a means of exchanging ideas, both in Twitter spaces, directly with each other, but then, sharing articles, sharing information using the interface. So please join our Stop the Shots community. It is one of my goals this year is to do my best to build up that community along with continuing to produce this program
And
and write
I'll
my.
do my part. I'm in quite a few groups that have a lot of members, and I will share links to that with all the people that have helped me be sane, that I've helped them stay self-connected and safe, and in spite of the crazy world that we're in.
Right.
So, I like the idea of writing articles, speaking. I found that my approach has been to speak my truth with my heart,
Yeah.
as much as I can with people
Hmm.
that I know and in conversations, random conversations out in the world. And I find when I come from my heart, people that are curious will ask more.
Yeah.
Um,
We've
and
sort of you're telepathically answering what was my next question, which is how do we approach people basically? How do we, because we've had a good conversation with our recent guest, Danny Katz, who made a great point, which has really stuck with me. And I've been reiterating it because it is a concern and it's something to consider, which is that when you become a part of a movement, quote unquote, you often start to repel people. You
yes,
often start to wear the air of a fanatic. You start
yes.
to wear the air of an obsessed person who can't relate. So how do we communicate with people with all the anger that we rightfully feel, with all the trauma with everything else that we've gone through in association with this, how do we rein it all in and communicate with people in an effective way? So you were
Well, and
starting to
that,
sort of get to that type of thing.
yeah, I think that it's so important to remember that fear is a powerful tool. And when it's used correctly, it can be used to propagandize people. It can also push people away. That's why I say when I speak to people, I make sure that my fear is not what I'm coming from. I don't have to convince you. I'm not going to convince you. I can't tell you everything. I try to connect one human being who loves people. I believe that we are more alike than different. Even the evil people that are doing horrible things, I do believe in the essence of who we are, that we all come from the same source, whatever you want to call it, that
Hmm.
connects us. So I try to connect to that in myself, which is my vulnerable living model. When my inner child, my inner parent, and my inner adult are connected, my vagal nerve is working, I'm grounded, and I feel like I'm more than just myself when I'm in that space from a light kind of way, a light being kind of way. And this might sound woo-woo, but it's what I've experienced. It's what I feel, and it's what I notice. And so I will start a conversation from a loving place. If it's going to be in fear, I don't start the conversation. I don't want to match that energy. I want to show a lighter, loving, connected energy. And I might say, oh, how do you feel about that? Or this is what I thought. This is what I experienced. I try to
Hmm.
come from love because that's what I want to spread.
Right.
I don't want to match the fear. I don't think fear is going to pull them out of that space. I'm hopeful that my coming from my self-connection and love and true care for other human beings may ignite something in someone. And I have quite a few friends that I've just been myself in that way, my imperfect self. And I've shown the light by being lighter. And we've had some beautiful conversations. And some of those friends aren't getting boosters. And some of those friends will talk to me about things, but it needs to be done way to say it. The fanatics are also fearful. I'm not a fanatic.
Sorry. Again, the Zoom acted up a little bit. It said it needs to be
Come from love.
right.
Fanaticism is from fear as well. I'm not going to cure their fear by applying more fear. That's why they don't want to talk about it. They're already afraid. I don't want to
Right.
look at that. I might die. Oh, I
Right.
might die if I look at the fact that there are sudden deaths and that the death rate is much higher in the vaccinated, and that it doesn't even prevent me from getting sick. I might get sick too. I don't want to look at any of that. So I'm going to come to them with love.
Yeah.
I think that's the salve. I think that's what the world needs more of, truth and love, but truth that's told with love. And I back off if there's resistance. I realize they're carrying a lot of fear inside. And because of my love for humanity, I'll back down. But they know where I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great approach. I like that disposition about the whole thing. Yeah, it's an ongoing challenge. And and actually you reminded me of another important point that I wanted to make just in light of just the ongoing atrocity of it all in terms of people actually dying and
Yes.
people getting very ill and just an inordinate level of injury and things amongst my peers and
Turbo
different,
cancer.
yeah, different groups. If I look at this group isn't doing very well anymore. That group, there's suddenly several six people in the group. What happened? All these little sub groups that I could look at. There's so much evidence to my own perception that something is really wrong here in terms of this sudden wave of health issues. And it makes for a very unique experience, a powerful experience, mostly in a negative way in terms of it's the whole it's a sort of full circle sort of effect that I'm perceiving in terms of you feel anger to some extent, resentment for being ostracized, for being abandoned, for being rejected by people you considered friends. And then you see some of those people suffering. And now all of a sudden the anger turns back to compassion And now I'm
Yes.
saying, wait, I was really angry at you, but this punishment is too severe. I don't
Yes.
want to see this.
It's heartbreaking. It's,
Yeah.
it's interesting because I've had the chance to talk to some doctors, and again, I lead with my heart, rather than, oh, this damn COVID shot gave my partner, asthma. Instead, I say, when I'm at the appointment virtually, and I say, do you mind if I ask a question? You know, he's an adult. He's 57. He's never had asthma. It's really interesting to me. What do you think about that? Oh yeah, since COVID, we've seen a lot of asthma. It's an unusual. It's coming in every week, multiple appointments for people that have acquired, asthma. Oh wow, that's really interesting. What do you think? She said, well, we're not sure whether it's COVID itself or the vaccine or both. But that's a conversation. A doctor had a very open conversation with me. Yep, that's what we're seeing.
Hmm.
This is real, people. This is
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, it really
It's
is,
sad.
sadly. It's too real. And that's a line of reasoning. I'm glad you raised that point as well, because it gives me an opportunity to point out something that has troubled me from the beginning, which is this ridiculous line of reasoning of justifying the harms of the injection by immediately saying, "Oh, well, COVID is worse. Well, COVID causes heart problems too." And then it turns out, oh no, there's no evidence of that actually. But it's like, don't you realize that there's something wrong with your so-called medication when you have to keep justifying it by saying it's not as bad as the disease it's supposed to cure? But ultimately, it's such a ridiculous proposition, which is these injections are associated with 1,291 side effects. Dr. Ryan Cole has referred to it as the Swiss Army knife of injury and death. It's associated with this vast excess death in every country where it's been administered, which is not subsiding even as intake has completely subsided. Excess deaths continue. And, all this stuff is happening. And, it's like how we wake people up to this horrible reality. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not a pleasant conversation at all. I mean, it's so unpleasant. It's a
And
nightmare.
it's so scary. They were scared into taking it, and now they're scared of perhaps getting sick or dying from it. And that's why I say I think love is the salve. And don't think that I don't think this is serious, but I think love is an important, and I don't mean, being wishy-washy and kind. I mean genuinely remembering that these people fell for something, that now there's a lot being revealed, and they were doing their best at the time. And that's a human condition. We all make mistakes. We do things that we wish we hadn't done, or things that we wish we'd done differently. And they're sitting in the midst of a really big one. So I think they need love more than anything. And the people that stay angry, and that, like your friends that won't talk to me or think I was putting other people at risk, which actually, by the way, the stats show that people that got the vaccine didn't have the symptoms. So they were the super spreaders. There's all kinds of research showing
Right,
that. And
your so-called symptom reducing vaccine, which I don't believe. I think that was sort of their last ditch effort to salvage the wreck and say, "Oh,
yes,
well, it reduces your symptoms." Well, there's no proof of that.
well,
Like,
but for people that had the COVID vaccine and then got COVID, they did have. I don't think that it prevented death necessarily, maybe in some very unusual cases, but those people didn't have symptoms, so went around spreading it. When who didn't get the vaccine, as soon as I had a little cough or a sniffle, I went home.
right.
I didn't
Well,
want
I
to.
I don't wanna get into the weeds medically,
Yes.
but I will say that, and I at least have this confirmed by my co-host and friend, Dr. Ben Marble, which is we really cannot make a distinction per se between someone's COVID, quote unquote, and what are just the ongoing symptoms of their spike protein production
Uh-oh.
as per having received the shot. So maybe it's like what
Right.
you're calling COVID and you think is an external attack is now
Could
an
be.
internal mechanism to your body.
And long COVID.
Right, that was another great thing to sort of sweep everything under the rug. I mean, it seemed to me just from an overview of the propaganda as it pertains to variants or the scariants, as we call them.
Yes.
But it was like, there was COVID, the alpha version. Then, ooh, it's Delta that's suddenly deadlier. Generally, a pathogen gets less
Yes.
virulent
Danger.
because it wants to spread more. But this strangely got more virulent when the vaccine was available. So you could die. It's really dangerous now. This is the most dangerous variant yet, which is like marketing, promoting the need for a product, creating a false need. Then, oh, immediately as the vaccines are failing before the public, oh, now it's Omicron. So you have
Right.
Delta, your need for the vaccine, Omicron, the failure of the vaccine. Oh, but it's just like a cold. It's more mild, so it's doing us a favor. Everyone's going to be immune because of Omicron. But who can name any variants other than Delta and Omicron? That was kind of, I mean, these things are mutating constantly, but they don't have all these other little variants that we can remember. It was just that was sort of the general outline of their commercial campaign to
The
make us take this
propaganda,
garbage.
the propaganda of marketing, or the marketing of propaganda. Yep.
I mean, in terms of society as a whole, would you say that we sort of need to go through a therapeutic process now as a society, basically? Just there has. I mean, I don't know how you send a whole nation and a whole globe to go to go get therapy together, but we need like family therapy for the planet now, right?
I do believe so. And that's why I say the salve that I offer is love, because even with my clients, my love for them as human beings struggling and trying to grow, my love is the magic in my work. I can talk about all the other stuff, but in truth, my mother taught me about love and how it's always there, and having access to it and sharing it is what I believe is the way that I'm going to combat this. And I won't reach I can only see so many clients. I have a group, I do a vulnerable living group, which is a place that I can access more people. I have more people can have access to me, but I do live in the world, and I do my best to do my own work, to take good care of myself, to take care of the people around me in terms of being kind and generous, being an ear, always an ear, a loving ear to people that want me to listen, even if it's someone on the street. I listen to homeless people. I don't care who you are. If you want to talk, I'm going to make the time to listen. Those are the things. I think each person, what I believe is we each have a superpower, and finding what your superpower is. And maybe for you, it's being a musician, playing instruments. I can't sing worth a damn. I can't play anything. I tried the piano. I was all thumbs, but I appreciate music, and music speaks to me. That is something that I go to calm myself, to relax myself, to remember love sometimes. There are lots of ways to express your superpower. I think people need to find that and then share that, whatever that is, that can be an extension of what they can do that provides positivity in the world. But doing it with fear, we can't try to change these people who are so afraid into being unafraid by sharing more fear. It's
Yeah,
just,
that's such a great point, and that's such a great note to end on. And I'll share with you that my father, just like your mother, he taught me the same thing, that love was the most powerful force in the universe. So,
and it's
um,
at the core of all great religions, if you look at wherever they really come from.
yeah. Thank you so much, Laura Taylor. It's really a pleasure and a privilege to have you as a guest today. Could you tell us quickly where people can find you?
Yep, I'm Vulnerable Living. It's a tongue twister. Vulnerable Living everything. I'm on Facebook. I have a Vulnerable Living group. If you go to search for that, you'll see a Buddha head in my garden, and that's how you'll know it's my group. Vulnerable Living on TikTok, Instagram, and vulnerableliving.com. You can check out my group. You can join that if you want to as well. Reach out to me in any of those places. I'm on X, but it's different there. You'll find me in his group. Under Laura and some weird number, but vulnerable living is the tag that is mine. And,
Yeah.
and if you can't find me, reach out to Jeremiah and find me. I'd love
Yep.
to have a conversation with you around any of this.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Laura Taylor. Looking forward to future conversations with you, and please come again soon. We'd love to continue this conversation.
It would be an honor to have share time with you again, Jeremiah. I really hope that we can soon. And to everybody, Take a breath, feel your feet on the ground, and remember your connection to everything, whatever that is to you. Get that vagal nerve activated, because that's how you can calm your nervous system and be the best version of yourself, no matter what's going on outside of you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura Taylor.
Bye for now.
When you walk with open arms towards the sun, you feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive, and you don't have to be afraid of anything, 'cause you know the truth, and the truth is love, yes it is. Wasn't what they said to you, or anything that you learn from a book or from the news. It's not like that, 'cause it's a thing. It is something that you do. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Dib-on baby did alone. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Dib-on baby did love's the highest truth. Nothing could be higher than love, my friend. Love's the deepest truth. Nothing could be deeper than love, my friend. When you stop and you take the time just to think about your life, you'll recall the ones you love and the ones who were always there for you. Better thank those friends better. You better make amends. Go and tell them now, yeah, yeah. Tell them what they mean to you. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Dib-on